The Lost City might just be one of the most funniest action comedy films I've seen of all of 2022. The film is directed by Aaron Nee and Adam Nee, and while I'm not familiar with their work, I was very excited to see what they would bring to the table. And I would like to ask you guys, if this is your first time on the channel, hit that subscribe button, give the video a like, and comment below your thoughts on The Lost City. A reclusive romance novelist on a book tour with her cover model gets swept up in a kidnapping attempt that lands them both in a cutthroat jungle adventure. The film stars Sandra Bullock, Channing Tatum, Daniel Radcliffe, Divine, Joy Randolph, Brad Pitt, Oscar Nunez, and Patti Harrison. So being completely honest about this film, I watched the trailer for this film and honestly, I really wasn't expecting a really well-made movie. It just seemed too silly to me and I just didn't feel like I was going to really like this movie. But I can say after watching this film, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought that it had a lot of laughs, especially for comedy today. We don't get a lot of comedy. I didn't feel like the comedy was too safe. It didn't really push the boundaries too much, but the comedy that it does have, there's definitely some laughs to be had in this. The audience that I had in this screening, there were a lot of older people in this, but they were really laughing. And at times I thought they were laughing a little bit too many of the jokes because I didn't think the full movie was completely funny, but I enjoyed a lot of the jokes and there's definitely a lot of jokes to be had here. And then of course the chemistry between Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum, it's really on point here. They do a really good job of bouncing the comedy off each other. Although at times I did feel like some of the comedy, it kind of drags on a little bit and I was like, let's get the movie going a little bit more. We don't have to have as much comedy as we have here. But for the most part, the pacing in the movie was pretty well done. And I never thought that the movie was too long. And I didn't feel like the movie was too short either. I thought that Brad Pitt did a pretty good job. But honestly, he is not really much in the film. He's only in about 10 minutes of the film. So if you're going to go see this for him, just know that he's not really much in the film and doesn't really play too much of a factor. And then I also thought that Oscar Nunez, he has a character also the name of Oscar. He was in The Office, if you remember. I thought he was really funny in this, especially for the small part that he played in this movie. I thought that he did a pretty good job. And as far as Daniel Radcliffe, he plays Abigail, the villain in this, and he ends up kidnapping Sandra Bullock's character. And I thought that he did a okay job for what they were given for him as the villain. I don't think he's the strongest villain, but I thought he did okay for what they were giving him for here in this part that he played. And I don't really necessarily think that he would be the best villain that I probably would have picked for this role, but I think he does okay. And I think that people at least enjoy him on screen for the most part. I think this is one of the bigger movies that he's played in recently. He hasn't really done a whole lot lately. So for him to be in this movie, and as far as him being in this movie, I thought that he did just a fine enough job. Patti Harrison is also in this film, and I know her from seeing a film called Together. I've never really seen her in any other kind of films. I thought she did a pretty good job in that film. And in this film, she has a smaller role, but she has some funny lines. I thought that what she was given was pretty good as well. I do think in this film that the comedy in this, it has some pretty decent comedy, especially for what we have today. We don't really have comedy films anymore. And I think this is probably around the best we're going to get because a lot of times with these old comedies, it would be offensive in today's terms. And I just don't see us having those kind of comedies anymore. So I really think the future of comedies is a film like this. It's not safe like A War with Grandpa a couple years ago. It's more a little bit stretched out, and it has those moments that it doesn't necessarily cross the boundary, but it doesn't feel too safe either. It just has jokes at times where they keep going on, and it's just like, all right, chill out with the jokes a little bit and let's get back to the story. And if I'm going to go with negatives on this, that's definitely something that I could say about this film. I think that it brings the comedy, but at times it's too much comedy and it takes away from the story a little bit, the adventure, of course. And I think that the adventure of this, it's not as strong strong as I would say like a Jungle Cruise. I really liked Jungle Cruise last year and the adventure with being on the boat. And they're in the jungle here, but I don't feel like they always have the highest stakes throughout the entire story. There is Daniel Radcliffe, and of course he has some henchmen, but I really don't feel like they have a ton of stakes in this. I also would like to point out in this, there is a particular scene that they show in the trailer where their car is going down a hill and it keeps falling down the hill, and they kind of keep the joke going. That is actually not in the film. There is a shorter version of it where the car just kind of tumbles down the hill quickly, and they did cut that out of the film, and I don't know why they did that, but I guess maybe they wanted to save time or such. I'm not sure why they did that, but I thought it was a waste that they didn't put that in the film because I really was looking forward to that scene. As far as music and the dialogue goes for this film, I thought that the score, it just feels kind of like an action adventure kind of score. Nothing too special that I can really point out about that aspect. As far as the dialogue in this, there is some dialogue that I didn't really care for, but I think the film overall is dialogue. I don't think it necessarily fails on the dialogue portion. I think this is a more kind of fun kind of film. It doesn't really take itself seriously, and I think because it has that comedy aspect, the adventure portion, it's not as heavy as the comedy that they're trying to portray in this film, and I think the adventure isn't as strong as maybe like a Jungle Cruise, even though I don't think Jungle Cruise is as strong as some other films like Pirates of the Caribbean, but just comparing it to that film, I think that that one has a little bit more adventure than this one, and I think that this one has probably a little bit more comedy than Jungle Cruise. So just comparing those two, as far as the comedy, you're going to get it in this film. As far as the adventure, I think it is a little bit lacking, but there is enough here to satisfy the audience, and I think that older audiences will definitely gravitate to this film because of Sandra Bullock, and I think people that also like Channing Tatum, I think they will really enjoy him in this as well, and you're getting plenty of them in this film, and I think people are going to enjoy that chemistry that they see on screen. Wrapping up my final thoughts on this film, I'm going to give a score of this film a 3.5 out of 5. I was pretty much impressed with this film, a lot more so than what the trailer kind of showed us, but I think it's a pretty solid film. It has some comedy, has a little bit of adventure, and it has some pretty good chemistry and dialogue between the characters, with at times a little bit awkward dialogue at times, and a little bit of jokes being overrun its course at times, but for the most part, I think it's a solid film, and I think it is definitely worth a watch. Thank you guys for watching this review, and I'll see you guys on my next review. Until next time, see you guys later.